So it's day 273, and this is going to be a little bit shorter. As I looked through all the articles for today, I was realizing that, the thing that strikes me is how innovative both sides have become. And unfortunately, it's both sides. The Ukrainians have been crazy innovative. The Russians are being innovative as well in some ways. And unfortunately, that innovation is not a morally good thing. It's a morally neutral thing. So you can be innovative for good or for evil, or you can be innovative in an evil way. But I want to highlight a couple of things where the Ukrainians are, one where the Germans are, a couple where the Russians are, and then I'll just catch you up with some other events that are going on, and particularly what the European Parliament has done. That's really, really interesting, and there's going to be a significant effect. So stay with me. Okay, so the first thing is Zelensky talks about invincibility centers to start working if electricity's supplies cannot be quickly restored. So the work of the points of invincibility, also called invincibility centers, is what will be activated if there are Russian missile strikes and they can't restore power. There are 4,000 such centers that have already been prepared. So this is where you can get basic services like electricity, mobile communications, internet, heat, water, first aid kit, free around the clock. These centers will work without fail at all regional and district administrations and school buildings, buildings of the emergency state service, etc. Okay, so this is one of those things that is, necessity is the mother of invention, and this is one of those places where they're being crazy innovative because they have to, and it's actually leapfrogging over some of the problems that are there. I thought this was also an example of that innovation. Stop Russia, or Russia is a terrorist state, or whatever, using the hashtags in order to communicate in an effective way about what's going on. And really, what we've seen on social media has been very innovative. Unfortunately, both sides have used it very, very effectively. Okay. How Germany ended reliance on Russian gas. So Germany put themselves in a kind of a hole by being so dependent on Nord Stream gas, so reliant on Russia, and that made sense during peacetime. But if there was a situation like what just happened over the course of the last year, they put themselves in a real bind. But they have been crazy innovative. And energy security for this winter is guaranteed, said Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Now, it's day 273 today, and that is really remarkable that in about 200 days, they figured out how to do this. So what they did was they they created this on Germany's North Sea coast. Engineers have just finished building in record time the country's first import terminal for liquefied natural gas. That's what you see here below. And Germany is very bureaucratic just by nature. And so that they could do this kind of thing in that kind of record time. Within weeks, tankers from countries like the U.S., Norway, Emirates, other places will come to this location. And here we are. Here, it's right up in the corner of northwest Germany. So they'll be able to guarantee that supply of liquefied natural gas. Okay, the Russians are also being innovative, and unfortunately in a terrible way, where they're working on a children's army. It's not army like little kids going to war, but to kind of indoctrinate them early on. This is very similar to the Soviet era patriots, or no, not patriots, pioneers, the Pioneer Youth Program. But it's something like that. Look, okay, there are Boy Scouts in the United States as well, but this is in service of a terrible cause, and the indoctrination is terrible. My children, two of my children, are in Civil Air Patrol, which is probably a fairly similar thing, but again, the innovation for a good cause or a immoral cause. Okay, and now we see an example of a immoral use of this innovation. So the Kremlin appears to be setting information conditions for a false flag attack in Belgorod Oblast, Russia. So they're saying that they're going to create conditions where it looks like Ukraine has attacked Belgorod. They were doing this with Belarus not too long ago as well, and this is very creative. I got to give them that, but it's also immoral. It's lying. It's trickery in order to make your side look like somehow you're the victim. Russian claims of an imminent Ukrainian attack on Belgorod Oblast are absurd and only aim to scare the general public to support the war. Ukraine has no strategic interest in invading Russia and no ability to do so at such a scale, and that's pretty fair. By the way, somebody mentioned the other day with the video that had come out, the video of the POW or perfidy, and it looks like it's perfidy. Somebody said, yeah, they're going to be showing that to their recruits and showing like, see, this is what's going to happen. So you better not surrender, or, I don't know that that's going to happen, but I can imagine that that kind of thing could go down. Okay, we got to remember we're in the middle of a hot war still. There are still missiles raining down. There are still soldiers, fighting infantry in Donetsk and Luhansk. At least 3 killed by missile strikes in Kyiv as Russia pummeled Ukraine's power infrastructure with multiple missile strikes. Today, as a result of the attack, a 2-story residential building was damaged. Like we're so used to hearing a 2-story residential building was damaged that we don't even it doesn't even shock us anymore. But that is an attack on civilians. That means that is a war crime by definition. Massive blackout in Moldova, so it's spilling over that border because of the Russian taking out the energy supply that's actually going into Moldova. When I say spilling over the border, I don't mean the war. I mean just the effects. A missile strike killed a newborn baby in southern Ukraine, and here's actually the article about that, about the newborn baby being killed. And this is terrible. A newborn baby was killed on Wednesday after an overnight Russian rocket attack struck a hospital maternity ward. Again, war crime. Okay, the mother and the doctor were pulled alive from the rubble by rescue workers, but the baby died. And so this is why. And by the way, this is what it looks like when a missile attack happens. And there's nothing really graphic here, so I think it's pretty fair to show here. But I mean, just the chaos, the other. And this is in Kyiv. I'm not saying that this is the baby one, but just after a missile attack, this is what it feels like or looks like on the ground. Now, I have to hand it to them. This is evil. They're wrong. I don't want them to do this, but it's very clever of them. In the villages around the temporarily occupied Donetsk, the Russians mobilized. This is in Luhansk region. The Russians mobilized almost all the men in 10 villages and settlements around Donetsk. Almost everyone under 60 years of age was mobilized. Well, think about this. You're mobilizing the people that are there. Your Russian soldiers aren't dying. These guys are. They're going to be pushed right up to the front. And it's very clever. They're thinking, but it's in service of an immoral or evil cause. Okay, so with all of that, with all the pressing people into service and bombing a hospital and bombing a residential building, finally you're getting some traction with the European Parliament declaring Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. NATO just did it. Other parliaments have done that as well. The European Parliament designated Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. The move is largely symbolic, as the European Union as an entity itself does not have a legal framework to back it up, but other individual states can start doing that as well. With that, we see Pravda talking about this. Maria Zakharova reacted as Maria Zakharova usually reacts, which is, I propose to recognize the European Parliament as a sponsor of idiocy. Keeping it classy, Maria. Okay, but at the end of this Pravda article, we also saw this. Earlier, the parliaments of Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Estonia, and the lower house of the highest legislative body of the Czech Republic also adopted similar resolutions. So that's these 5 plus NATO plus the European Parliament just now. PACE has done this. So I think that's 8. So there you're going to see a build and build and build. And who are state sponsors of terrorism around the world? It's like North Korea, Syria, and I think Iran. It's somebody close if it's not Iran, but it's like those kind of countries are state sponsors of terrorism, and they're heavily sanctioned for that, and that's the path we're about to go down. One last article from Pravda: Strategic Culture, Russia and China to Isolate the European Union. So this is some Russia's wildest fantasy, but China doesn't want to be isolated. They want to trade. Russia would love to have a brick counterbalance. But according to Alistair Crook, if you're British and you know who Alistair Crook is, I'd like to know. I looked a little bit up about him, but he doesn't seem to be anybody terribly influential. I could be totally wrong as an American. Said that the European Union will completely lose its connection with China soon, as it has already happened with its relations with Russia. No, China has played it cool. They're not supporting, although they're probably in back rooms talking to the Russians, but they don't want to be sanctioned at all. They want to keep trading. They realize that they're dependent on trade in order to grow as a nation. Europe has lost Russia, it will likely lose China, and probably it will find itself excluded from the Colossus free trade area unfolding in Eurasia as the blocs differentiate into separate trading spheres. This is Russian propaganda. It's their wild fantasy of being the other white meat. I mean, they want to be the other thing rather than have it dominated by the West. And I get what they're trying to do, but I don't see it happening. All right, that's all that I have for today. And I hope that helps you have some extra perspective about what's going on in Ukraine. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this and being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.